During a high school class project, my teacher told me it's unrealistic being a CEO. It's been my dream to be a CEO since I was 10. So I told her, it is realistic. Follow me on my journey to learn what it takes to become a CEO.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Realistic CEO podcast. Today I'm here with Rob Madrid. How are you doing today, Rob?
Hey, it's good to see you, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So the first question I want to ask you is, can you tell us a little bit what you do and the name of your business?
Sure. So the name of the business is Digiarks. We're a digital marketing agency. So we do everything from, my original specialty was digital ads and SEO and that type of thing, and the technical side of digital marketing. So that was one of our specialties. And then the other main side of our business is website development. Host anywhere between 75, 80 websites or so at this point. We make 30 to 40 websites a year at this point for the past few years. That's what we've been doing.
So you said your specialty, you did SEO. So
yeah,
a little bit about that.
Search engine optimization. So this is one part of our business. Ads is probably even more a bigger part of our business, but search engine optimization is really about making your website more attractive to search engines, doing the things that you can do, which is really at this point, creating content. That's a big thing. So that's one big pillar. And then the other pillar is some technical things that you can do behind the scenes, whether that's right on the website with things like meta descriptions and page titles and how are you alt descriptions on images. There's some technical things that we do. And then we help our clients to create their own content that's going to be attractive to Google. So we'll actually do keyword research and tell them, hey, this is the kind of keywords that have a lot of traffic to them. You might want to concentrate your attention on these keyword sets, and that's specific to your area too. So that's like the SEO side of it. And again, that's actually a smaller piece at this point because we don't really sell ongoing SEO. I don't think it's all that ethical to sell it that way. We sell them as one-time projects, help our clients get to where they want to be. And then the bigger side is that we do ad campaigns for clients across all the platforms that are out there for digital marketing.
So can you tell us a little bit about your journey to how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So went to college, did the traditional college thing, worked in sports for a few years out of college. I actually worked for so I started working for the American Hockey League headquarters, which is in Springfield. Then very quickly started working for the Basketball Hall of Fame and decided I just didn't want to work in sports anymore. It had been my passion when I was growing up, but found that when I was in the business side of it, just didn't like it as much. So went back to school, got my master's degree, and that just made me a little more attractive to more business-oriented companies. I worked for GM for a little while, and then that was around the 2008, 2009 period, and GM went bankrupt. So my whole division got laid off, and I bounced around from jobs for a while because I think I was always a budding entrepreneur. I just didn't always feel like I had the skill set to do anything. So I just worked for other people for a long time. And at one point, got a job for Mass Live Media up in Springfield, was the director of digital solutions there for about 5 years, and then just decided that I wanted to do things my own way. I really enjoyed connecting with clients. I also enjoyed what my version was of doing things the right way, and decided to start the business. And I had a partner initially who'd also worked for the parent company of Mass Live. It wasn't a great fit. We can talk about that more, but it wasn't a great fit. I quickly bought him out and then was solo for a while. And then we added on website development with another partner now. And then my wife works in the business full time. And then we even have another employee that works for us as well.
So I want to talk about, you said that you always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but you were working for other people. So like, how were you able to take that leap of faith and believing in yourself to starting your own business?
I was pretty demoralized at my last job for a lot of reasons. And it just became so personally painful to work for somebody else that it didn't feel like that much of a leap to leave and do my own thing. The other thing that kind of happens, if you're miserable in a job and you're miserable doing what you do every single day, because you do it more than you do your job, oftentimes more than you might see your kids, right? Especially if you're working out of the home. The money that I was making became a lot less valuable to me. And honestly, the idea of taking a major pay cut, and when I left my job, I had my third child, and my third child was 6 weeks old at the time, I think. Maybe, he might have been around closer to 2.5, 3 months old when I left my job. So it was a scary time. I have a great wife who was allowed me to take that leap. But having less money, and of course you make smart risks, right? Like we had savings that would carry us for a little while, and I had a couple clients lined up already that were gonna bring in some revenue, but it was a huge pay cut. But the pain of the pay cut was a lot less than the pain of continuing being miserable at what I was doing. I loved marketing. I loved helping businesses grow, but I didn't like the constraints that I had at the jobs I had. And I just had ideas about how I thought I could do it better and more straightforward. Our whole thing is that we're no BS. Like, working with us is either for you or it's not. And that's great. We'll just tell you how we think it is, our suggestion on what we think you should do. Try to be as collaborative as possible. But if it doesn't work or it's not right or you're skeptical of us, that's okay. Go do something else. And then sometimes people come back. People come back later after they have a different experience, or they don't, or they have a good experience elsewhere, and that's fine too. But I'll never say anything to try to convince someone to become our client. I want them to understand what we are going to do for them and how we're going to help them collaboratively. And if it works, if it doesn't.
So you said when you first started your business, you had a partner, but you guys didn't work out and you bought him out. So what's the process of buying out your partner?
Not as hard as you'd think. Take some money and a risk, right? So we were still very brand new. He had actually started Digiarks, and he had the name for a few years, and he was serving a couple clients. He was actually in Louisiana as well. Like I said, he worked for the parent company of the company that I worked for. And of doing business just wasn't, he's a good guy, a great guy, but his way of doing business didn't align with me. And it was also very hard being a time zone away, by him being in Louisiana and me being in Connecticut. So we just mutually agreed that it wasn't the right thing to stay partners. I had already invested a lot of my persona into the business because I was more probably business development as well as like the technical side of what we were doing. He was very technical. So I had just announced that, because it was only like 4 or 5 months later, I have announced this is what I'm doing to my whatever network I have. I just didn't want to start over again. So I said, will you take a buyout? And man, as far as steps were concerned, we figured out the price. We figured out how we were going to divide anything we had as assets or intellectual property, which I basically took all the intellectual property. He took a couple of clients that he had down in Louisiana that I wouldn't have been able to service anyway, that he had long-standing relationships with. And we had a lawyer to draw up a separation agreement, and then we were done. It was a little more simple. It was a lot of heartache, because here I am now. I've got a 6-month-old son and 2 other kids, and I'm wondering, am I sending my family down this path that's going to be really bad? I don't know. I had some type of faith that it was going to work out. I can't explain it. And it just did. And from this moment that we separated, stuff just started getting better. We had a couple clients that took a chance on us. And then I did a lot of networking that helped grow the awareness of us around in the local area. And then things just started getting better. And it's been a slow rolling to kind of to where we are today.
So when you're networking, like, what is your selling point to getting clients that are best fitted for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. So like I said, I do a lot of networking, and I have to give the elevator pitches and whatnot. And usually I say, if you know someone that's had a bad experience with marketing, have them give us a call. We try to be refreshing, right? Just talk to people. I don't make promises, right? We'll tell people, I think we can do. I get excited when I hear, I have an idea for something. And hopefully that's contagious with the client, but we don't overpromise. And we've had people tell us a lot that it's refreshing to talk to us after they've spoken to a lot of other marketing folks, because the thing is, there's a lot of big companies in marketing, right? And then you have salespeople. And there's nothing wrong with being a salesperson, but sometimes if you're a salesperson that doesn't have the knowledge around your craft, that's when things get dangerous. And you might start either making promises that you're not sure you can keep. And that happens a lot in marketing, right? Or you're not sure how something works, so you might just hedge around it. And then you're not setting expectations the right way. I try to look for people who have just want to grow and want to have a good conversation. And then at that point, we talk about what their opportunities are. And if I think there's a way we can fit and they think there's a way they can help, we can help them, then maybe we start working together.
So working in digital marketing, like, what are some ways that somebody could try to grow their business online?
There's a lot of things you can do. I think it starts with having a website and a presence. Let's just not say website. Let's say presence, right? So that probably includes some social presence. Google Business Profile used to be called Google My Business is a big thing, just to establish who you are, make yourself look legit, and having some type of website. Now, we sell nice custom websites. You don't have to necessarily start with that. There's a lot of platforms where you can create a website yourself more inexpensively just to start, and then maybe down the line you get something that's more custom. And then maybe that's when we might step in. But creating a presence, that's what you have to do, I think.
So what's the best way to be able to create a presence to finding the right audience for you?
I think it comes back to putting some content out there. Yes, you can say what you do. And maybe so that's like your website. You say what you do, but then you have an ability to have some video content that can be, and then you're using all the social platforms like YouTube, like Meta, like Instagram, Facebook, right? LinkedIn. It depends on where your audience is, right? So if I'm a B2C company, I'm probably paying more attention to things like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, right? Because that's where the consumers tend to be. If you're a B2B company, like business to business, and you're serving other businesses, LinkedIn probably makes more sense for you to put out smart content that you can talk to the people that are in your network. And then it's about actually getting out on the street and growing your actual network, talking about what you do, making friends with people in the business community. So for us, good partners tend to be people that are marketers, but that don't have the digital expertise in-house. That can be a good fit for us. Or other people that are talking to businesses all day, like CPAs. There's tons of them out there. And in addition to that, it's just being helpful to other people. I think networking has been just huge for us. 100% of our business pretty much comes from networking, which is interesting to say as we're a marketing business, right? But in something that your marketing is so close to the core of what you do that it takes a lot of trust. And we work hard with proposals too. So if someone comes to me, I want a pretty good chance at closing them. And sometimes if they come to you through marketing, they can be a little bit cautious of you. So I like it when people come to us that maybe already have a little bit of trust because they've heard a good word about us from somebody else.
Let's say you already found your audience and you know what kind of content that your audience likes. What are some ways to make sure that you're able to tailor your content and make sure that it fits your audience?
You have to experiment. I think there's enough data that you can get from the various platforms. So let's take YouTube, for instance, right? Let's take YouTube Shorts. There's tricks of the trade to get yourself some content, but good content's going to rise to the top. Like the cream will rise to the top, right? So as you produce content, see what gets reactions. See within your own group of friends, see what gets reactions, right? Or the people that you trust, and produce more of that type of content that worked for you in the past. I think you just do your best to try to produce volume and then see what works. It's experimenting. I think that's a big thing.
So when you're looking for clients, what are something that you see inside your clients that make sure like these are the type of people that you want to work with?
I love working with good operators. That's the most fun for me. Like we can tell when someone comes to us and they just don't have it figured out how to run their business, because that's something that I can't really control. Like I can help you to get a message out in a cohesive and attractive way, but I can't help you to take that client experience, because once they call you, then it's in your hands, right? To then make sure you're following up with that client appropriately, not too much, not too little, right? Getting the quote out to them appropriately, depending on the business, and then doing the work appropriately, communication, right? If people that have those procedures already set up well, those are great clients, because they'll take the push that we give them and then they'll become more successful. And then it becomes a good feedback loop, right? Because then they'll have more money to then maybe invest in more marketing and grow their business, have more employees, provide more opportunities for people. That's a lot of fun for us.
So let's say you have a client that you just don't really like working with. Like, how are you able to make sure that you're cutting them off, but also keeping it professional?
That's a really good question, Michael.
Thank you.
So I don't know. It hasn't come up a lot. Yeah, it's happened before where we're like, we can tell like a client just does not believe what we're saying, right? We just do our best for them. And then usually they'll, if it does, when we do have the turnover, and we're in a fortunate position where we don't have a ton of that, it seems like the people that, because of I talk to customers or potential clients the same way I'm talking to you right now. I just try to be as clear and forthright as I possibly can. The people that are going to have like maybe overly high expectations or maybe are going to be problematic, they don't tend to be attracted to us. So I'm not really answering your question. We do the best we can for every client. We don't try to push them away. We will talk to them clearly though. Like this is happening because what you're experiencing is happening because of X, Y, or Z. And this is why. This is what we can change and this is what we can't change. Now, if you want to make these changes in your own business, then maybe we can respond to that this way. I don't know. It's a hypothetical situation, right? And ultimately, if they don't hear what they want to hear, then they go, and that's fine, right? Maybe there's somebody else out there that's a better fit for them. We don't do anything to push them out. We just, I think, keep giving them the clear and honest, no BS answers that we always do.
When you're going and talking to these potential clients and you just get them the direct answer, like, why is it that you take that approach of you are keeping it upfront and honest with them rather than trying to sell something to them?
Yeah, you know what? If you're always honest with people, you never have to look over your shoulder. I've experienced people who had to always try to remember what they told other people so they could keep it straight when they're talking to them the next time. I never have to worry about that because I know what I would have said in any situation. It's just the honest truth, right? So and you can only get away, I think, with, I don't want to say lying, but or not being totally honest with people. You can only get away with that for so long. People sniff it out. We were just talking earlier about that, right? Mm-hmm. People can smell the BS from a ways away, right? And they may put up with that for a certain period of time until they maybe find something that they're more comfortable with. It would be if I tried to be slick, maybe a little shady, I wouldn't do it well. I'm just not, I don't think it's just that I'm such a great person. It's just that I'm just not good at that. For me, it's just easier for me just to talk to people. And my thing has always been about slow growth. I don't necessarily need to double in size this year. I'd like to grow by a certain percentage, but I don't necessarily need to triple. I'd like slow, controlled growth. And I think it's great when someone says, you know what? I'm going to shop around. We'll take some time with this. Great. And then it's really gratifying when they come back 6 months later because of that. They'll be like, I think what you told me 6 months ago was actually right. And I went another direction and now I want to come back. That's the greatest feeling for me. So yeah, I just wouldn't do it well, right? So it's easier for me just to be honest with people.
So with that example, you had somebody, they kind of didn't want to go in your direction. They went somewhere else. But since that you were able to keep it honest with them, they came back around to you. So when they came back around to you, how were you able to not take it out the wrong way, knowing that they thought that you weren't working at first?
Yeah, it's easy. I followed our path, right? Mm-hmm. We believe really strong. So there's a book that I read a long time ago that's always been something that's helped me set direction. There's a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. Mm-hmm. And in that book, he just talks about the people that, like, the difference between companies that were great and companies that maybe were just good, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things was this thing called Hedgehog concept. And the idea is that your Hedgehog concept is, what can you do that's the best thing? What can you do that can be better than anybody else in the world at? What is the best thing that you offer? Mm-hmm. And focus on that, right? So for us, it's just, we developed SOPs, standard operating procedures, for how we onboard a client, for how we go about monitoring a client, and how we go about reporting back success or lack of success to that client, right? We just follow we don't worry about necessarily what the client, like, we take input that we need from the client to make their campaign be successful, but we follow our standards. So then we don't have to worry about it. It's just, it becomes the same for everybody in that sense.
So when you're working with clients and trying to build a good advertising campaign for them, like, what kind of, like, that thought process behind those procedures?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, right? So, because we have a number of different platforms that we can employ. Mm-hmm. It's a combination of what we think might work the best, what their goals are, right? Their goals may be like leads short term. I don't really care about people knowing me, but I just really want the phone to ring. Mm-hmm. That's where a lot of people fall. So then there's a certain set of tactics that might work well there. But then we try to build awareness for people, and then there's a certain set of tactics there that also falls to, are they B2B, like business to business, or are they business to consumer? And then there's certain tactics that might make more sense to them. Are there different product lines or service lines that they want to promote? And then and also a huge piece of it is, what content are they going to have access to? Are they going to have access to video content that we could use through the advertising? Do we have to make our own video content using, like, still imagery? In a worst case scenario, do we have to use some, like, stock imagery? Like, to not do that. So what are we going to have for assets? And that will determine. And so you marry up all of those things together, and then that's how you build a campaign. And then the reality too is that they're going to they might have a budget, or they might have some money they're comfortable spending. And we'll try to work within that boundary as well. So you take all that together, and then that's how we put together what we think is the plan. Now, the nice thing is that I've done that for a long time, right? Like, pretty much my entire job in the previous world and now what I'm doing now was basically take a client's current situation and figure out what was going to be the most efficient way for them to spend their money. And we take that really seriously, because it's not our money that we're spending, but we're stewards of their money. So I want their spend to be as efficient as possible. There's a lot of times where people will say, should we just spend twice as much? I'm like, I'm not sure right now. Maybe not. Let's step into it. Let's try a few things out. And then once we see where the success is, then let's exploit that and maximize your spend then. It's back and forth conversation. It truly is really a conversation with our clients. And some people want to talk about it with us more, and other people want us just to deal with it and they'll sit back and just get the results.
So when you're doing advertising campaigns, and what's the difference between a campaign when it's business to business versus business to consumer?
Really tactical, right? It's really so tactical, meaning like what platforms are we talking to? So for instance, like LinkedIn has a lot of data about people's jobs, job titles, job functions, everything. They got it broken down in a really expert way. So if I'm a B2B company, there's a good chance that I want to talk to a decision maker on some level, like either the owner, the CEO, or maybe if it's a bigger company, it's like the head of this department. That's really hard to do on a lot of platforms, right? Outside of LinkedIn. So that's why that tends to be a preferred platform there. I don't think the mass marketing tools for B2B work quite as well because you have a lot of waste, right? Like I don't want to spend $10,000 a month of your money and have only 1,000 of that money actually get to the audience that you want. Now, some people can do that, right? Like you watch the Olympics and like company like Accenture or like these big advisory firms that for business advertising, they've got billions, right? Not most of the businesses that I'm working with don't have billions. They don't have the luxury of having waste. So that's why we try to limit it as much as possible. You can get super tactical, but it might be like some LinkedIn advertising, maybe some work on SEO, maybe some work on content with them. And then maybe we do retargeting, where that's where you get people people see ads who were previously on your website. That way, then we're reminding them that you're there. So that might be one, we might package it up that way. As opposed to the consumer side, which is actually a little easier in a sense, because then you can go to a lot of different platforms that speak to different consumers, and there's different ways of targeting. Meta is pretty good for that. Google has a lot of good options for that. Search with paid search or whatever, YouTube even.
As a leader of your company, what is some characteristics that you have to be a good leader?
I think one of the best characteristics is just trying to understand what's important to your people, and then speaking to them how they want to be spoken to, right? Honestly, it's hard work, right? You have to get to know your people, I think, and then be fair. Find a way of being fair and knowing when it's okay to push and when it's not. There's even little things, right? If I've been understanding to you for a long time and then I come to you one day, I'm like, we really have to push today. I really need some extra effort here, or I need some specific effort here. You're a lot more likely to take that in and be like, yeah, I want to do that for him. Because honestly, at the end of the day, they say, everybody's heard it, people leave bosses, not companies, right? They're ultimately, if you have someone working for you, they're doing it for you. Yeah, they're doing it because they have a job and you might be paying them. But at the end of the day, people can get other jobs, especially what's the employment rate? It's 3.5%, 4%. People can find other jobs. So you don't have to beg your employees to work, but you have to set fair standards and then help them to adhere to them. And then also find out what's important to them and talk to them about it and help them. And basically, how can they use your company or your job to help them get where they want to go? Maybe they only want to be with you for a little while, and that's great. Maybe they want to grow with you. That's great too. You got to take time to find that out. You might have heard of a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. I used to not like him. The way he operated, he has swears a lot, and not that I'm against that, but like he has a very sharp way of talking to people. But I really believe in what he is about. Someone asked him once, he was an own business owner, how do I get my employees to work as hard as I am? And his answer was, they shouldn't work as hard as you. Because do they get the profit when things go well? No, they shouldn't. But you should set fair expectations of what they will do for you and adhere them to that. And then also talk to them about what's important to them. It seems to make sense, right? It's how would you want people to treat you? That's what I believe in.
So how are you able to set fair standards in your business to make sure that your employees do feel welcome and feel like they're there to work for you, but also you feel like you're there working for them as well? It's
hard, but the way I work with that is to talk to them. Like, where are you with what you need? What do you need? How stressed are you? Do you feel you have more? Like, what is a realistic expectation for you to get this done? And depending on the answer, we really need to get this done by then. So what else can we move around for you so you could get this done then, right? people don't want to, like, some people like to be given deadlines, but I think people also like agency, right? Like the ability to have some control over their own destiny. Because at the end of the day, I think they're going to work a little harder for you if they had some role in what they were going to be doing and how they were going to be doing it. Because it starts with hiring the right people, frankly. If you hire the right people that can, A, do the job, have the right attitude and right expectation, and understand the expectations, then you don't have to manage them as hard. And then it's just having good flowing conversations and helping to guide the expectations that the organization has.
In the book, Realistic CEO Tone, he talks about the LBW, the long, lonely, boring work.
Yeah.
So can you tell us your journey in the LBW that you had to do to get to where you are today?
Yeah. I smile a lot with that because, I'll be completely honest with you. Maybe I shouldn't say this on camera, but like I started this business and there was a lot I needed to learn. There's frankly stuff in the platforms that I didn't even know how to do. Because where I was coming from, I was more of an executive role. I had done it in my past, but it had been a lot of years. We had people that could do some of the technical day-to-day stuff. And then I started my own business and it was just me by myself at first. And I just didn't know how to do anything. That long, boring work for me was, I'll tell a story about Google Tag Manager, right? There's a way you can use something called Google Tag Manager. It's code that goes on your website that you can help Tag Manager track things that users do on your website. So if they click a button, then that Tag Manager fires a code that sends data back to like your Google Analytics or your ad platforms. I didn't know how to set that up at first. It literally took, the long boring work for me was watching YouTube videos, having one screen, having the how to do it on the other screen, like being in the platform, having it go wrong a bunch of times, going to bed frustrated, waking up the next morning, doing it some more, doing it late at night. I remember one day with Tag Manager, I figured it out. I just got everything to work. And after a certain amount of time trying to set it all up, and I remember leaving the room because at the time, my office was in my bedroom. Like my wife was sleeping behind me and just like going out and like high-fiving myself in the hallway, right? That was a long, boring work for me. And honestly, it still helps us today. So you have to be willing to do the work. I have another friend who's starting his own company and he's trying to figure out how to do a certain thing so he can serve his clients. And I was like, you just have to figure it out. You have to spend the time figuring it out. And honestly, it's cemented more when you figure it out yourself too versus someone telling you how to do it. Sometimes I think I'm glad I didn't have a mentor in that specific sense for some of the technical stuff, because now I think I know it much better. Because a lot of along the way with the failures, you also learn other stuff. You're like, oh, that's how, and then something else might be applicable later on that you had some exposure to during that failure. You know what I mean? So you just well-round yourself. Yeah, I love that. Was it the lonely, boring work? I love it.
Yeah, long, lonely, boring.
Long, lonely, boring work. Yeah, that's exactly that. And that's the way you can have a lot of success, right? Because then you can speak confidently about something too, right? That's the challenge I see with a lot of folks, is that they don't want to take the time to learn something, but they'll learn it at a surface level, but then they don't speak confidently. And honestly, one of the ways I think that if we have any success, is that when we talk to people, we're really confident about it. So I can say, I don't know, really confidently, and people don't care. But there's a lot of people that are afraid of that because then it exposes their own flaws, right? Of course I know I have flaws, but I also know how well I know something. So if there's something that I don't know, I think it's fair that I don't know and I have to go figure it out. You know what I mean? But it's that confidence and putting in all that work that got me to understand my craft, that allows me to actually be vulnerable in those moments and say, I don't know, but I'll figure that out. But here's what I think it might be. Here's what I think from my experience we could do. But I'll figure that out. That makes a lot of sense. Just move on.
So I just got a couple more questions now.
Sure.
Actually. So how are you able to balance your work life and also have enough time for your family as well?
I don't know. That's an area where I need to grow. And it's a conversation we're having right now. So right now we're fortunate to be in a pretty busy period. And I need to delegate a little bit better than I do now. We probably need to maybe add some staff, but it's hard. I'm in a fortunate position where I work out of home and I also work with my wife. So I see her all the time, but that doesn't mean just because you see your wife or your spouse, your significant other all the time, doesn't mean that's quality time, right? We have to work really hard for ourselves and our own relationship to make time that's quality time for our relationship. That's not about our job, because again, she works 20 feet away from me and is very capable in the business herself. But I mean, from a personal health standpoint, right now in full transparency, I'm at a point where I'm working late a lot, and I need to figure out how to fix that, because that's not sustainable. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you, and I'm trying. But I think you have to second. It's time for probably me to take another chance and maybe start investing in either people or systems that are going to make us more efficient. So I don't have to do certain things until 2:00 in the morning, because it gets hard when you're a business owner, right? People want to talk to you. So you get the clients who will call you. But at the same time, I'm also like the digital specialist. So I'm also doing a bunch of work too that takes time. When do I do that without interruption? You got to figure that. Just got to figure it out. I don't know. I don't have an answer, man.
Thank you for that honesty right there. So the last question I want to ask you is, what's a fun fact about yourself?
Oh, man. An interesting fact that shaped me probably more recently. Yeah, so not so much fun. I'm going to answer your question in a very interesting way. So a couple of years ago, I went to the hospital for a month. I had this thing I got sick with strep and I got sepsis. And this really has framed up my mind a lot too more recently. And it makes these conversations really sensitive to me about like family and making time for them, because so I got sick. Very quickly, I went from being okay one day to on a ventilator the next. I was in a coma for 4 or 5 days, and spent 24 days at Hospital Central Connecticut. Wasn't on a ventilator the whole time, but I unfortunately had to have some skin grafts on my leg and everything, because the infection affected some of my limbs a little bit and affected my heart in a big way and some of my organs. So that's so much a fun fact, but an interesting fact is that I know what it's like to be like on a ventilator. I know what it's like to have some tough conversations where things were dicey for a while. And I need to remember that. It's good for me to even talk about it now, because it puts that previous question you just said about making time for my family, because it's easy to forget. So it was a year. So it was March of 2023. Sometimes it's how quickly we forget. My wife was just telling me, you're working until 2:00 in the morning. When are you going to prioritize your health? And she's absolutely right. And I don't have a good answer. But I was like, but all these people need me and they're busy. Guess what? They're not going to be able to do anything. You're not going to be able to do anything for them if you're not with us anymore. It's shaped me, even though it's something in my recent past, it's shaped me to where I am today about trying to make good decisions that are holistic decisions for just like my family and the business, and try to get to that elusive goal of doing what everybody needs me to do, but also being there for my family and their long term. So that's a weird way to answer that question.
That was a good answer. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Robert.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you guys for watching this episode of the Realistic CEO podcast. See you guys in the next one. Peace.